Superman 1951 wasn't just a simple serial, it was a thunderous collision of ambition, danger, and spectacle. And beneath that cape, behind those dramatic moments, chaos erupts in ways that'll jolt you. Studios clashed, stunts shattered expectations, props collapsed, and secrets, they're buried deep, until now. About to discover 20 weird facts about Superman, plus one bonus fact so wild you'll rewind the entire legacy of this legendary serial. Ready to dive into the unexpected chaos behind the Man of Steel? Let's go. Number 20. The exploding set near miss. What audiences don't know is that one of the interior soundstage sets practically collapses mid-take. It's not fragile, it's brutal. During a high-flying fight scene, a hidden effect rig shatters under pressure. A wooden wall splits in two. It erupts with dust, actors swerve, crew scramble. It wasn't safe, it was dangerously live. The director calls cut, and the dailies capture the panic in everyone's eyes. They halt production. They reinforce every practical build for the rest of the serial. That wall-shrinking disaster stays off the public's radar. But the emotional weight persists. A near-serious injury, unspoken tension, unseen scars. Number 19. Casting chaos over Clark Kent's voice. It's not smooth. It's wild. What audiences don't know, the actor cast as Clark Kent, broadcast voice actor with a deep baritone, then shows up too husky. Producers demand redubs. Tensions flare. The actor sulks. He mutters, "I sound like a cartoon." Studio interference turns actor pride into resentment. It wasn't simple. It was turf war over timbre. Voice recording engineers spend nights patching lines. They splice takes. The final cut masks the grumble, but reports from the studio say the dubbing sessions descend into glowering silences and clenched jaws. Number 18. Dangerous rooftop stunts on a shoestring budget. It wasn't cautious. It was daredevil. The team rigs rooftop action for the Metropolis skyline on a limited budget. The stuntman climbs rickety girders with just ropes. No safety net. A drop lands him with a twisted ankle. The camera rolls. Blood drips. Crew freeze. He pushes through takes anyway. Directors call action again despite the limp. It's not efficient. It's desperate artistry. Actors gasp. The practical effects creak under strain. They don't halt the shoot. It's survival. This scene makes it into the final cuts, adrenaline-charged and real. What audiences don't know, that limp is authentic, that injury is real, that risk bleeds into cinematic legend. Number 17. Script rewrites in secret. It wasn't static, it was rogue. The script evolves mid-shoot. Writers send new lines via courier at dawn. Call sheets swap pages. Actors receive notes in the makeup room. Plot twists shift arcs. Lois Lane suddenly quips differently. Superman's motivation deepens. The crew whispers, "Did we just change the ending?" But no memo goes to all. It's patchwork. It's covert. Some actors haven't read the new versions until filming. Director resists, but studio orders. It's not collaborative. It's power play. By the time prints cut, the story's tone is jagged but electric. What audiences can't sense is the internal editorial feud, rewrites that dodge scrutiny but leave narrative scars. Number 16. A cryptic radio warning Easter egg. It wasn't obvious. It was sly. In the background of one scene, a radio announcer warns of something uncanny approaching Metropolis tonight. Crew scramble for clearance rights, but the studio improvises, recording a cryptic flourish on the dart points of a misspelled news clip. Sound editors racked it in the mix to heighten mood. Audiences barely notice. They don't know it's a planted hint at Superman's arrival. Not blatant, but alive. That hidden message lingers like a ghost in the soundtrack. It's a whisper they never heard consciously, but it colors the scene emotionally. Number 15. George Reeves wasn't the only Superman on set. It wasn't singular, it was a double act. While George Reeves became the face of Superman, the production quietly employed a second man to handle certain wide shots and hazardous setups. This wasn't a glamorous stunt double, it was a costume stand-in used for everything from tricky wirework to back-turned walking scenes. Reeves reportedly disliked the flying harness, calling it a torture device, so the stand-in bore the bruises. The call sheets rarely listed him by name, simply marking Superman, Alt. For years, fans assumed every frame belonged to Reeves, but eagle-eyed viewers can spot subtle differences: the gait, the shoulder build, the way the cape falls. It wasn't fraud. It was survival filmmaking. Number 14. Metropolis wasn't in a studio. It was borrowed. It wasn't an elaborate Hollywood backlot. It was a scavenger's patchwork. The production couldn't afford to build all of Metropolis, so they borrowed real city blocks in Los Angeles, Pasadena, and even Culver City. Storefront owners were paid small stipends to keep signage generic, and extras were told to just keep walking, as if nothing unusual was happening. At times, curious pedestrians wandered into shots, forcing retakes. One scene meant to show bustling streets accidentally captured a bakery delivery truck emblazoned with a very non-Metropolis business name. The crew shrugged. Continuity wasn't worth another rental day. The result is a blend of real-world grit and comic book fantasy. Number 13. The cape had its own stunt rig. It wasn't just fabric. It was a mechanical prop. For Superman's flying shots, the cape needed to billow dramatically even when Reeves was suspended motionless. The solution? Thin wires sewn invisibly into the lining, pulled by crew off camera to simulate wind. At times, a hidden floor fan added extra motion. But the rig wasn't always cooperative. One misfire yanked the cape sideways, nearly choking Reeves mid-flight. He tore off the harness in frustration, yelling about this infernal contraption. What made it onto screen looked smooth and heroic. What happened behind the camera was a constant battle against a rebellious piece of cloth. Number 12. Villain costumes came from a surplus store. It wasn't bespoke tailoring, it was bargain bin resourcefulness. The 1951 Superman serial had a limited wardrobe budget, so many of the henchmen's trench coats, fedoras, and leather jackets came directly from Army-Navy surplus stores around Los Angeles. Crew members would return from shopping trips with stacks of mismatched outfits, which were then altered in the costume department to appear more villainous. One recurring baddie's jacket was actually a World War II pilot's coat, with insignia carefully unstitched. For all the pulp style on screen, most costumes had prior lives, sometimes literally on the backs of veterans. It gave the production an unexpected authenticity. These weren't shiny artificial wardrobes, but real-world fabrics, worn and weathered. The actors joked about smelling the ghosts of old adventures every time they slipped into costume for another take. Number 11. The flying was mostly lying. It wasn't graceful aerial ballet. It was a man lying on a padded plank. The illusion of Superman soaring through the sky came from Reeves, stretched out on a horizontal platform, painted to blend with the background, with the camera tilted for perspective. Sometimes the shot combined rear projection footage of moving clouds. Reeves kept his arms rigid, shifting only slightly to sell the illusion of motion. The trick was convincing enough for 1951 audiences, but excruciating for the actor. Holding the pose for minutes at a time caused shoulder cramps and neck strain. Crew members joked that the Man of Steel was really the man of stiff muscles. Despite the discomfort, Reeves powered through, knowing those flying shots were what children would remember most. On screen, it was magic. Off-screen, it was static, sweaty endurance. Number 10. George Reeves's suit was the wrong color. It wasn't bright blue. It was a strange, dull, grayish-brown. Because the 1951 Superman serial was filmed in black and white, the actual suit colors didn't matter. They just had to photograph well. Bright blues and reds looked muddy on film stock of the era, so Reeves's iconic outfit was sewn in muted tones that translated better in grayscale. Up close, it looked almost drab, but under studio lights, it popped as the perfect Superman palette. Reeves later joked that if fans ever saw him in person on set, they'd wonder why Superman looked like he was wearing his pajamas inside out. The costume choice wasn't a mistake. It was a calculated trick of cinematography. On screen, it was heroic and larger than life. In reality, it was a visual illusion born from the limitations of mid-century film technology. Number 9. Daily shooting was a punishing sprint. It wasn't leisurely Hollywood pacing, it was relentless. The Superman crew shot on an almost industrial schedule, sometimes completing an entire 10 to 12-minute episode in just a few days. Actors barely had time for rehearsals. Lines were learned between takes. Call sheets stacked scene after scene with no room for reshoots unless absolutely necessary. Reeves, already juggling intense stunt sequences, often had to jump straight from fight scenes to intimate dialogue moments without a break. Crew members described the atmosphere as a race against the clock every single day. This wasn't about artistry, it was about survival. The pressure created small continuity errors, but also gave the serial its punchy, breathless energy. The final product may look effortless, but every frame was captured under the ticking clock of a brutal low-budget timetable. Number 8. Lois Lane's actress endured dangerous stunts too. It wasn't just Superman in harm's way. Noel Neill, playing Lois Lane, found herself doing risky stunt work without much safety prep. In one episode, she's tied to a chair in a warehouse set that catches fire. The flames were real, produced by burning fuel-soaked rags, and smoke quickly filled the room. Neill later admitted she was genuinely frightened, coughing between takes and struggling to see her marks. The crew reassured her it was perfectly safe, but no fire department was actually on standby. By today's standards, it would have been unacceptable. On screen, Lois appears brave and composed. Off-screen, the danger was very real. Neill didn't complain publicly at the time, but she carried a lifelong awareness that playing a damsel in distress often meant actually being one. Number 7. Props were recycled from other productions. It wasn't all custom-built movie magic. The Superman production frequently raided Warner Bros.' prop storage for furniture, gadgets, and set dressings. Desks from old detective films, filing cabinets from courtroom dramas, and lab equipment from forgotten sci-fi serials all reappeared in Superman as part of Metropolis. Sharp-eyed fans can even spot the same mad scientist control panel in different episodes, just repainted between uses. This resourcefulness saved thousands in production costs, but occasionally created odd visual inconsistencies. One villain's lair featured a piece of machinery that had been prominently used in a completely unrelated film the year before. For audiences in 1951, it was seamless. For film historians today, it's a treasure hunt through Hollywood's recycled scenery. Number 6. The cape nearly ruined a fight scene. It wasn't choreographed chaos. It was unscripted mayhem. During a brawl sequence, Reeves's cape snagged on a villain's prop gun mid-take, yanking him backward unexpectedly. The impact sent both actors stumbling, knocking over part of the set wall. Rather than cut, the director kept rolling, capturing the moment as part of the fight. In the final edit, the stumble looks like a deliberate move, a gritty, improvised counterattack. The truth: Reeves strained his back in that instant and spent the next few days icing the injury between scenes. Reported outside the crew, but it added an authentic roughness to the episode. What audiences saw as dynamic action was, in reality, a painful wardrobe malfunction in the middle of a high-stakes shoot. Number 5. The phone booth gag was improvised. It wasn't scripted. It was a happy accident. In one episode, Superman changes inside a phone booth, a visual gag that later became iconic. The truth? That booth wasn't even in the original scene. The location crew found it near the filming spot and suggested Reeves step inside for the change to save time between takes. The director loved the comedic potential and kept it in. It quickly became a fan-favorite bit, reused in future productions as a shorthand for Clark Kent's transformation. What seemed like a carefully planned piece of Superman lore was, in reality, a spur-of-the-moment decision driven by convenience. It's proof that sometimes the most lasting pop culture images are born out of sheer on-the-day improvisation rather than calculated creative planning. Number 4. Reeves did his own wire work until he didn't. It wasn't outsourced at first. George Reeves personally handled most of his wire-assisted flying shots early in production. But the primitive rig was unforgiving. Metal clips dug into his hips, and the wire tension caused nasty bruises. After a particularly rough landing jarred his spine, producers quietly began using a stunt double for longer or riskier sequences. Reeves still performed short takeoffs and landings for close-ups, but the wide, extended, soaring moments? Those were often the work of his uncredited double. This decision wasn't laziness, it was self-preservation. By the time audiences saw the episodes, the editing blended both men seamlessly, making it appear that Reeves was an unstoppable aerial performer. In truth, the Man of Steel had backup wings. Number 3, a prop-safe door nearly broke an actor's hand. It wasn't foam, it was real steel, at least partly. For a scene where Superman rips the door off a bank vault, the crew prepared a lightweight wooden frame painted to look like metal. But a hinge mechanism from the original safe door was accidentally left in place, making it far heavier than intended. When the villain actor slammed it shut in rehearsal, the weight caught another performer's hand, nearly crushing it. Filming stopped while first aid was given. The accident left the crew rattled, and from then on, prop checks became more rigorous. On screen, the door still looks massive and menacing because at that moment, it really was. The realism came at a painful price. Number 2, the serial doubled as a marketing experiment. It wasn't just entertainment, it was strategy. The 1951 Superman serial was released not only to thrill audiences, but also to test Superman's viability for television. Studios closely tracked audience turnout, merchandise sales, and press coverage. The results were clear. Superman's popularity surged, convincing executives to green-light the Adventures of Superman TV series just 2 years later. What audiences didn't realize was that they were participating in a large-scale test market. Every ticket bought, every fan letter sent, was data in a larger plan. This wasn't a simple comic adaptation, it was the launchpad for one of the most enduring superhero screen franchises in history. Number 1. A last-minute villain swap changed the ending. It wasn't the original plan. The script's final showdown originally featured a completely different villain, but the actor scheduled for the part backed out due to a conflicting commitment. With no time for recasting, the writers rewrote the climax to use an existing secondary villain. Sets were redressed, and the plot's logic was bent to make it work. The rushed change explains why the ending feels slightly abrupt compared to earlier episodes. Most viewers never noticed, but for the cast and crew, it was a mad scramble. What was supposed to be an epic new confrontation became a repurposed battle. Proof that in serial filmmaking, adaptability often trumps perfection. Bonus fact: the missing episode mystery. It wasn't lost due to accident. It was erased on purpose. One Superman episode, shot but never aired, was quietly shelved by the studio after concerns it mirrored a real-life tragedy in the news. The film reels were reportedly destroyed, and no script copy has ever surfaced. Rumors persist among collectors that a single work print escaped, hidden in a private archive. Its absence leaves a gap in the serial's continuity and a tantalizing what if for fans and historians. Was it too violent? Too political? Only those few who saw it in studio screenings know. Superman wasn't just a black and white serial. It was a proving ground, a place where creativity clashed with constraint. Danger brushed shoulders with ingenuity, and mistakes transformed into mythology. What we saw on screen was clean heroics. What happened behind the camera was messy, risky, and utterly human. If you love uncovering the hidden truths behind cinema's most iconic moments, hit like, subscribe, and keep your eyes on the skies, because there's always another secret waiting to be revealed.